The Ninth Circuit Court has unanimously denied President Trump's travel ban.
See It Live starts right now. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has upheld the suspension of President Trump's travel ban of 7 Muslim-majority countries. Good evening, I'm Mark Salinger.
And I'm Madison Weil. The case will likely be appealed and eventually decided by the U.S. Supreme Court. Minutes after the decision, President Trump tweeted out, "See you in court. The security of our nation is at stake."
We spoke to an immigration attorney in Orange County about the decision.
We feel good about the decision. We think it was a very well thought out and correct ruling. Now, you have to keep in mind this is still a temporary restraining order on the government's executive order.
Annenberg Media's Lauren Day is at LAX asking travelers about today's ruling. Lauren?
I'm here at the Tom Bradley International Terminal at LAX. This is one of the largest entry points to our country. Every day, thousands of people enter these doors and leave this terminal to come to our country. If you take a look behind me, you can see people arriving here. And so the fact that the Federal Appeals Court will not be reinstating Donald Trump's travel ban on 7 predominantly Muslim countries is leaving a lot of people with mixed emotions. I spoke to one woman who says she was relieved to hear about the decision and feels that the ban was unfair to those who have already been vetted.
I'm really glad that they're not going to reinstate it. It's very unfair to most everyone that's trying to get into this country. People have waited years to get here. They've been vetted thoroughly already. The Obama administration already set up pretty strict vetting standards, and what he was trying to do is definitely discriminatory, and it's obvious to most everybody. I don't know why he just can't see that. It makes me have some faith in the judicial system that they won't let him just get everything that he wants to do.
Yeah, and I also spoke to a Trump supporter who says he was a little disappointed to hear about the decision because he feels that the travel ban will actually make our country safer. But he did want to point out that this is a democracy, so he's just going to have to go with the decision. Live at LAX, Lauren Day, USC Annenberg Media.
Thank you, Lauren. Now, both sides presented their arguments to the Ninth Circuit Court on Tuesday. Judges asked the lawyers representing the government if they had any evidence to support that claim that countries in the ban were connected to terrorism. Here's what they had to say.
Has the government pointed to any evidence connecting these countries with terrorism?
These proceedings have been moving very fast. The strongest point on that is that in 2015 and 2016, both Congress and the administration made determinations that these 7 countries posed the greatest risk of terrorism.
Now, judges also asked lawyers arguing against the government if they had any evidence that the ban had caused harm. Here's the Washington Solicitor General's response.
What's the irreparable harm to the state of Washington?
From the executive order? Well, we detailed a number of irreparable harms, Your Honor. We had students and faculty at our state universities who were stranded overseas. We had families that were separated. We had longtime residents who could not travel overseas to visit their families without knowing that they would be able to come back. We had lost tax revenue.
Reactions to the ruling have spread quickly across social media. Alex Salvi is in the studio to see what people are saying on Twitter.
Thanks, Mark. It took less than 10 minutes for President Trump to take to Twitter following the announcement of the decision by the Ninth Circuit Court today. But we want to show you some of the other reactions we've come across on Twitter. So here's Trump's, of course, and we can't go without seeing Hillary Clinton's response, to which she said 3-0, of course, referring to that unanimous decision in the courts earlier today by judges from both the Carter, Obama, and Bush administration. Now, the Washington State Attorney General also verified that, saying denied, unanimous, referring to that 3-0 unanimous decision. Nancy Pelosi herself went to Twitter saying that this ruling is a victory for our Constitution as well as the country's fight against terrorism. Senator Ben Cardin said tonight the Ninth Circuit Court proved that our system of checks and balances do indeed work. Now, Kellyanne Conway, a spokesperson for the Trump administration, went to Fox News saying that the president has full confidence in his Supreme Court nomination, Neil Gorsuch. Now, of course, Neil Gorsuch is the Supreme Court nominee. However, he's not yet been confirmed. Now, Gorsuch could be the split decision tiebreaker in a 4-4 decision, meaning that the 9th appeal decision would be the ruling law of the land. Now, it's also been reported today that Chuck Cooper withdrew from his consideration for the Solicitor General position, meaning that as of right now, the federal government doesn't even have anyone to represent them in a Supreme Court action. Now, Sean Hannity said, as predicted, the 9th Circuit, the most radical and left-wing court and the most overturned. And we did some fact-checking on this, and the 9th Circuit is indeed the most liberal in the sense that it has the most democratically nominated judges at 68%. And it is as well the most overturned, with almost 80% of its decisions being either redacted, reversed, or vacated by the Supreme Court. Now, this has been a trending thing on Twitter all day, with, of course, the 9th Circuit being a big thing, and, of course, Donald Trump's statement as well. See you in court. Maddie, back to you.
Thanks, Alex. Well, Trump's immigration ban certainly has impacted the USC community over the past few weeks. I'm here with Dr. Hamad Mirzai and Sina Abu Turabi today, who have graciously agreed to be on the show and talk a little bit about your experiences in the past few weeks. I'll start with you, Sina. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how this ban impacted you personally and what today's decision means to you?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me over here. I would say this ban was really regretful for me and my family because I was really trying so hard to get my father over here, and my father was diagnosed with some sort of semi-Parkinson Alzheimer disease. Mm-hmm. So when I heard about this executive order, I was completely lost.
It's devastating.
Yeah, it was so devastating. I mean, I couldn't even tell anything to my family. So
I know you told me earlier that you had actually contacted members here in government and worked out a deal with Cedars-Sinai to actually have this procedure and have this medical treatment. So that must have been just absolutely devastating when this ban, came out. But today, hopefully, a little bit more of a hopeful tone as this news came out. Do you feel a little bit more optimistic? I would say.
Yeah. Much better good news.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, then we'll shift over to you, Hamad. I know that we've talked about how you have a information session planned for students on campus who have been impacted by it. We can't say that the impact is over because we still don't know what is going to happen when this may or may not end up in the Supreme Court. So you're still planning on having this session. Why don't you tell me the purpose of it and what you're going to be talking about?
So the USC actually had an info session not too long ago where they invited a lawyer and members of the OIS. So we want to mimic something similar and provide it for students if they're not able to meet that information session. We're calling it inclusion in the face of exclusion. We have lawyers from the lawyer clinic at USC. We have representatives from Office of International Services and also students that can share their own stories, how they were affected, or if they have family members and friends that were affected as well. The idea is not to really say we are against anybody or for anybody. It's just these are the information we have so people can make appropriate decisions.
So important to have these. I know a lot of students that I've talked to this week have just been talking about how there's been so much confusion and lack of communication about this. So it's very important to be having these things in the upcoming weeks. I want to thank you both so much for being here and taking your time to be here with us. Back to you, Mark.
One of the main arguments used by the Trump administration to justify the travel ban was that it wasn't the first time that these 7 nations had been singled out. Countries named in the order are Iran, Iraq, Sudan, Syria, Libya, Somalia, and Yemen. This isn't the first time these 7 nations have been singled out. About a year ago, the Department of Homeland Security, under President Obama, made it harder for most people who had traveled to any of these countries within the past few years to come back into the United States. DHS said that this was designed to combat the threat of foreign fighters. Trump's order goes much further. It banned all citizens of these countries from entering the U.S. The broad restrictions resulted in people being detained in U.S. airports upon arrival and others not being allowed to board flights to America. Although Trump's orders mentioned the attacks on 9/11, none of the people who carried out those attacks came from the 7 countries under his ban. Trump has rejected critics' claims that the ban is anti-Muslim. Many Muslim-majority countries aren't on the list. For example, Saudi Arabia, which was home to many of the September 11th hijackers. The American Civil Liberties Union has also pledged to tackle the legality of Trump's travel ban and defend the rights of those affected. ACLU legal director David Cole spoke to USC students earlier today about why he thinks the move is illegal.
I think it's a Muslim ban. It doesn't say on it the Muslim ban, but I think actually we, those who oppose it, have effectively put that title on it, so that in the public narrative, it is a Muslim ban. It's intended to be a Muslim ban. He promised to put a Muslim ban in place when he was a candidate.
Now, the ACLU says that they will continue to challenge the ban that they say is unconstitutional. Regardless of your position, a momentous day in American politics. Obviously, the President of the United States, this is a big loss for Donald Trump right now.
Right, and we'll be keeping plugged into this in the next upcoming weeks, seeing what he decides to do. Obviously, he is looking forward to that next level, taking this to the Supreme Court, so we'll have to keep you updated.
And definitely exactly why we have 3 branches of government for things like this.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching See It Live from everyone at Annenberg Media. I'm Mark Salinger.
And I'm Madison Weil. You can watch us on the web at uscannenbergmedia.com. Thanks for stopping by.